This is Artful Discourse, your weekly escape into the vibrant world of creativity, culture, and intellectual exploration. I'm your host, Benjamin Kirk, and I invite you to join me on a journey through the rich tapestry of human thought and the beating heart of artistic expression at Fresno State's College of Arts and Humanities. Welcome, everyone. We have a packed studio today as we talk about the exciting new podcast, Central Valley Stories, a series that takes an in-depth look into the history, trends, changes, and challenges in the public relations and advertising industries in the Central Valley. Professor Betsy Hayes with the Media Communications and Journalism Department, or MCJ, the creator and host of the podcast, joins us today. Welcome, Betsy.
Thank you very much. Really happy to be here.
Also in the studio are students in Professor Hayes' MCJ 157 Public Relations and Advertising Practicum course, aka TALK. Those students are Alexis Breen, graphics and social media, and Adam Vang, copywriter and YouTube uploader. Welcome to both of you.
Hi, how you doing?
Thank you so much for having us.
They are in the MCJ 157 Public Relations and Advertising Practicum course, and that's called TALK, right?
Yes. Yeah. The nickname for the course is Talk because the course is actually modeled after a public relations and advertising agency. And back in 2009, my students created a student-run advertising and public relations agency called Talk, which is morphed now into this course. And so we've kept the name. We've been through a couple of logo iterations, but we want to keep the legacy of, really focusing on giving the students an opportunity to have hands-on experience with clients.
Sounds great. And we're going to talk a little bit more about talking a little bit.
I know, I'm ahead of myself.
I'm going to start with you, Betsy. We're going to talk a little bit about this. First of all, how can people listen to the Central Valley Stories podcast?
Yes, Central Valley Stories, Advertising and Public Relations podcast is available on, everywhere that you listen to your normal podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And then we also have decided to put it up on YouTube so folks can listen on YouTube because we know that's a very popular, interestingly, that is a very popular place for podcasts.
Now, tell us a little bit about the podcast. What's your vision for the project?
So this is just, I'm so grateful and I'm proud of this project. This has been something I've thought about for a really long time. In teaching public relations and advertising, we talk a lot about the history of the industry as a whole, mostly nationally, but sometimes internationally. But there really has been a gap in teaching our students about the local history of the industries. And so I thought, you know what? A creative, fun way to do that would be through in-depth interviews, and a way to get people to listen to in-depth interviews is to create a podcast. So that's sort of where the idea was born, to provide students with that added depth of curriculum. And then ideally the industry folks and then anyone interested in local Central California history would also enjoy the content.
Right. And this lives on in perpetuity, right? So people can listen to it in the future. You can use this as part of your course, I assume. And, the public has it out there.
Absolutely. That was kind of the vision, is to, it's a baker's dozen. We have 13 episodes on the podcast, and it really is designed to live as a package in perpetuity. You will always be able to find it on the different podcast platforms, on our YouTube channel. I'm also going to be having conversations with our library, so I hope they're listening, about including this because it is really a type of oral history. And so it would be fun to house it there as well.
Now, your guests seem to be kind of a who's who of public relations and marketing agencies locally. Can you tell us who some of the guests are and why did you choose them?
Yes. So that was actually a really fun challenge because I wanted to, I was thinking, 12 sounds like a good number. And then I decided that a baker's dozen sounded more fun. So we went with 13. So I wanted to provide people with a breadth of industries and experiences. That is really kind of the main criteria I had for choosing the guests. In addition to, obviously, they had to have longevity of career. These are folks that have been doing this for decades, and I wanted folks to hear from people who've really been doing this for a long time. So those were sort of the lenses in which I chose the guests. And so I really wanted to have agency owners, I wanted to have people in different industries like agriculture and nonprofit. And we obviously wanted to include the world of Spanish language media and advertising. And so, looking at all of those lenses, I wanted to try to encapsulate as much as I could from that. And I'm really happy to say that I think we're very successful. There's a lot of variety
Hmm.
in what these people did and are still doing for a living.
Why do you feel these stories are important?
I think, first of all, I think they're really inspiring. And every time I re listen to an episode, I learn something. And I'm also inspired because these are people that have dedicated their entire careers to making this industry really good, not only here, but elsewhere in
Mhm.
many cases. And I think learning history is really important because that's how we all get better, is learning from other people's experiences and also sharing wisdom, inspiration. There's just so much I think people can get from these episodes.
It seems like it really gives students a clear path of what's possible as well.
Yes, and that's what I'm hopeful, right? I'm hopeful that this will encourage my students and the students in MCJ to continue to pursue this as a career path and then hopefully recruit other people because at the end of each episode, I ask for advice from each guest for people who are considering this path. And it's really great advice and it's also really encouraging. And I think that the students have shared that it really motivates them.
Now, Alexis, I see you nodding on. Do you have anything to add to this?
I think I agree. My favorite part of the podcast is the end when they give advice. And I think a lot of us in the class are seniors and graduating in a couple weeks. And I think it's a very kind of nerve wracking time trying to figure out what you're going to be doing after this. And so just to get that encouragement from people who are professionals in the field and know what they're talking about is really helpful.
Yeah. Now, I know this is kind of going way back because you've now released 10 episodes
Hmm.
and you said 13 in total.
Yes.
So I really enjoyed your first episode with Scott Giedemann,
Hmm.
and he's the PR guy up at Yosemite National Park. And as you know, I used to work in local news, so I remember a lot of the things he talked about, like President Obama's visit and Oprah Winfrey's visit to Yosemite. And it was really interesting to hear the work that was involved from his perspective, because I saw it from the other side where we were consuming what they were putting out and arranging for us to have. Um, so I'm just curious, do you have a favorite interview or maybe one that surprised you a bit?
Oh gosh, of course I cannot pick favorites, Ben.
I know.
There
That's
are
why I
no
like putting you on the
favorites. I know it's
spot a
so
little
not
bit.
fair. And I don't have favorite students either or anything like that. I love them all. It was what I loved is that every interview was so much fun. And there were people that I have known for most of their careers, and I learned something new. And then there were people that I didn't know very well at all and were just mesmerized hearing about their paths because again, I knew nothing, I didn't know that depth of what they were going to share with me. So, obviously Scott being first was a ton of fun. He's been a friend and colleague for goodness, he's been coming down and visiting with my classes for about 20 years now.
Mhm.
And so that was fun. I made him talk about all my favorite stories that he shared with the students. So that was great. I think that the most valuable thing for me was I left every single interview learning something I didn't know.
Mhm.
I left every interview knowing more about the history and why, things have evolved the way they have in the valley. And I also, again, was inspired and I thought, wow, these are, people in our community that are so amazing. And that makes me feel very proud.
Do you think that there's a difference between PR in the Valley and PR in other places?
Yes and no.
Hmm.
Obviously, some of the industries that are more prominent here, like agriculture and nonprofit and healthcare and tourism, exist elsewhere, but maybe not in the same percentages
Hmm.
as they do here. And the tenets of really great advertising and public relations are universal, and we talk a lot about that on the podcast, particularly ethics and integrity. However, there's such a community feel in this area that I think definitely translates into the conversations on the podcast. And I always tell my students that the public relations and advertising industries are very small. And, people do know each other and they support each other. And you really feel that in the conversations that, yeah, a lot of these folks have been competitors for decades.
Mhm.
Yet, there's always some respect and reverence for the quality work that others are doing. And I don't have actual proof that that is, not everywhere, but I would venture to guess that the community aspect is something that makes us very special.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think there's a common theme or takeaway that runs through these episodes? Alexis had mentioned the advice at the end. Is there some piece of advice or practice that keeps coming up?
Definitely, lifelong learning
Mhm.
is one of the big themes because, the technology, just as an example, has changed so dramatically throughout all of these folks' careers that if you, stopped learning at the fax machine, for example, you'd probably have a lot of trouble today. But the lifelong learning, I think, is a theme. The flexibility and ability to pivot has also been a theme. Some of these folks, particularly the agency owners, have completely changed their strategies as far as clients over these years. Some have, tweaked their strategies, even though they didn't go, completely away from their initial strategy. It's still very different now. So the ability to be flexible, the ability to pivot, lifelong learning, ethics and integrity has definitely been a theme. You don't get to do this for a living for more than a minute and a half if you don't have those things as part of your professional person.
I want to open this question up to the students as well. So, what are your thoughts?
As far as common themes in the episode, I think lifelong learning. I also think a lot of people mentioned like I guess it would be your ability to pivot or just your ability to kind of like keep going through maybe something that didn't go as planned or that kind of thing. I think a lot of the guests talk about, well, this was my plan and then this happened and it didn't happen the way I thought, but I just kept going. And so I think kind of like resilience is a really common theme amongst all the professionals too.
Um, I just really think that it was really diverse. Like, so, well, along with all of them, like, definitely you see the PR side, but everybody comes from different background. Everybody specializes in something different. So it wasn't really prevalent in all of them, but that was what stuck out to me the most.
Betsy, tell me how this project started and how the students are involved in the project.
Yes. So this was a just an idea that I've had for quite some time. And when I chose to apply for sabbatical, and obviously you need to have a project, I thought it would be a really great opportunity to do it at that point because this is something that you really need to give the time and attention to and the more detailed deep dive the better the product is going to be. So it was an opportunity to create an idea that I've had for a really long time. And this original plan actually was a little bit different. And then I was talking with our dean, and she and I both agreed that this would also be something that would be really fun to involve the students with. So the idea morphed to be a year-long project where the production happened in one semester and the distribution happened in the second semester, so the students could be involved. So I teach a course, as we talked about at the beginning, our PR and advertising agency course, and so I decided to give one of the teams an opportunity to promote the podcast as we distributed it week by week for 13 weeks. And so Alexis and Adam and three of their class colleagues have been working all semester on doing just that. And it's been, again, real life. This is a
Mhm.
thing that's actually happening. And if they, don't do what they're supposed to do, no one will know about the podcast. So it's been a really fun experience for me to support the students. And I think they've done a really good job.
And what aspects of it have they been involved in? We talked about Alexis was you're doing graphics and social media, and
Yes.
Adam, you're copywriter and YouTube uploader. So talk to me a little bit about your.
Yeah. So a lot of our promotion is done through social media, through the MCJ Instagram page, and the X page. So I've done a lot of like making the graphics that are posted. And we've been highlighting each of our guests every single week to kind of let people know who's going to be on, and maybe depending on where they worked or kind of their niche will spark some more interest or that kind of thing. So I've been doing a lot of that. And then we also have some other gals who work on the YouTube graphics and that kind of thing. And then Adam's been doing a lot of the copyright.
Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of the copywriting. Most of them they're pretty rough. It's I wouldn't say it's exactly easy, but uh, after listening to the videos and listening to and reading their biography, I just try to come up with something witty for it, and then
Mhm.
I send it over to Betsy. She edits it and she sends it back my way,
Yeah.
and then I do all that and then post it up on YouTube.
So when you say copywriting, the shows are done at this point. Is the copywriting for that's for the YouTube? That's for
Yeah,
the
it's for the social media and the YouTube.
okay.
So I do it for the social media, and I send it over to Betsy. She edits it, and then we uploaded a partial version of the edit for of the copy onto YouTube.
So what are some of the other jobs that the students are involved in?
So there was a promotional video
Mhm.
that has been created that'll actually, maybe we will air it when this airs. That'll be fun. We'll do that.
Ah.
Okay. So when this episode airs, will also be the debut of the promotional video. We'll do it that same day. That'll be great. So the students created a really neat promotional video, and that was one of their projects. And the social media, as was mentioned, including all the copywriting, the physical creation of the YouTube, because you have to layer the audio with the graphics and create the channel and the uploading and watching the analytics and making sure that you're paying attention to the comments. So all of the YouTube has been, delegated to the students. I do the uploading on the podcast side, the just audio side, but all of the YouTube has been driven by the students. And then we also are putting together, in conjunction with you, an article for the College of Arts and Humanities blog,
Mhm.
which will be promoting the podcast. Excuse me. And yeah.
Yeah, and I have been working with some of your students on that. I get emails from them from time to time. So, but Adam, you actually worked on the video, right?
Yeah. So me and Jacob and our videographer buddy, we shot it in 2 days. We shot it in about 2 days, and then I did the first cut rough draft of what I wanted in there, and then the spacing, and then I sent it to Jacob, and he did the After Effects on it.
All right.
So that's why if Jacob was here, he could talk more about it. But
So let's talk a little bit more about the talk class because it's actually set up. So if I tell me if I'm wrong here, but from my understanding of it, because I've been involved in a couple of projects with the talk class, and the students are split up and work on different projects, and it's each project is like its own little agency. Is that a good way to describe it, or how would you describe it?
Yeah. So, excuse me. Yes. So the students have both. Everything is client based and team based. So this semester there are 5 student teams of 5 students each, and each of them have their own client. I've done a million different iterations, as many educators will relate to that. As you teach a class, you try all kinds of models before you find the one that is the best. And I have found that when the students have a client that is just theirs, everything works better
Mhm.
because there's that autonomy, there's that ownership, there's that emotional investment, all that good stuff. So each of the students have student teams have a client, and then they also do things as a whole. And so we've got clients that are class wide, and then we have individual clients for the teams. So this semester, for example, a client that the whole class was working with was the Ronald McDonald House, where we provided event support for their Red Heart Ball fundraiser. So that was something the entire class worked on. And then the individual client this semester are the Central Valley Stories podcast with these wonderful folks here. We also are working with Yosemite, which is
Mm.
really fun. So it kind of all tied together. We're working with Scott Gedeman and Yosemite. The students are producing a water safety campaign, which is really, really important this year because there is a lot of water coming down those waterfalls, and water in Yosemite is beautiful and dangerous. And so they're putting together a campaign. And then we also are supporting the second annual Fresno State Innovation and Entrepreneurship Summit. And then there are 2 teams working with the Career Center. So one of them is working on reaching out directly to students with some content. And then the other group is actually working to reach out to faculty as a conduit to getting the information to students. So we're going at it from a couple different directions. So everybody has a very distinct scope of work.
And it's a practicum course. So this is students are actually doing work for real clients. And how valuable has this been in your experience being part of this course?
I think it's been super valuable. We kind of got to not choose, but kind of suggest which projects or which clients we wanted to work with. And so when I heard about Central Valley Stories, immediately wanted to do that one just because I felt like the information would be super valuable. And so I think it's been really good getting to learn from PR professionals in creating this podcast, but also I think working with your professor as your client adds a little bit of stress, but also really someone who's always there with you to teach you and walk you through. And I feel like I've just learned so much about like promoting and doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, and on top of that, I think like Alexis was saying, this has been a really great experience because I look at it as a volunteer work because even though it's for class, and I'm learning real life skills that I would apply in the field. For example, I just got an interview for a job for copywriting, and that's all I do for this assignment. So I really just see it as volunteer work that I could use to apply my real life skills.
Well, and what are your majors?
I'm advertising and PR.
I'm advertising PR.
And so what are you said you just interviewed for a job with
Yeah,
copywriting?
yeah, for copywriting.
And
Yeah.
is that what you're looking to get into?
That's actually not what I'm looking to get into, but this is good experience because this is all part of PR.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not mad.
So what do you hope? What are your long-term goals?
I mean, my big goal one day is to own my own advertising and PR agency. But I think in this class, I've learned a lot about the type of clients that I like to work with, and then also like my outside internships. And I think a big focus for me that I learned this semester is that I really want to focus in on community and do work that specifically helps my community. And so I think doing Central Valley Stories and hearing about all of these people from the Valley really just reiterated that idea for me.
My big goal is I actually have two that I'm not too sure yet. Initially, I wasn't unsure. I wasn't sure at all. But recently, I've been more into account managing for an agency or PR specialist. I initially got into this field because there was a job listing for a PR specialist for this company that I'm very fond of.
Mm.
So that's why I originally got into this field. So it just kind of kicked me there, and yeah. So hopefully, PR specialist or account manager.
All right. Professor Hayes, what's next for this podcast? Is this something that's going to continue forward? Is this just the 13 episodes? And
That is a great question, and I'm still working it out. So I don't have an actual answer, but initially, once we have all 13 episodes out in the world, which will happen a week or so after folks hear this, I will be working to promote this as a package because as a 13 episode thing, I think it also has value as a unit. And so that's where the promotion will transition that look, we have this library of wonderful things that can be used for a myriad of options. And so letting folks know about this, hopefully get a little more publicity and partnership with the local public relations and advertising associations.
Mhm.
That is something that we haven't explored yet. So maybe even an event around it or something like that. I've had preliminary talks about maybe even housing links to this on their websites. And so, trying to extend the life of the current set of 13. I have colleagues who feel like, this could be a book or, so there's a lot of opportunity because there's such a valuable bank of content.
Mhm.
And eventually it would be really great to do a season 2. And, I've started a list already. Folks have been giving me, excuse me, have been giving me names for, oh gosh, you should do blah, 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 blah next. And I'm keeping notes. So should I have the opportunity to do a season 2, I will already have a leg up on who I want to invite. So stay tuned, listeners. There might be a season 2.
And it seems like with the name of the podcast, you could actually open it up a little wider if you wanted to.
And that was one of the motivations to provide that flexibility.
All
Yep,
right.
you're absolutely right.
Okay. See. Well, I guess we'll hopefully have an announcement in the future. So is there anything I missed? Anything anybody would like to add about Central Valley Stories, your experience, anything?
I would say like you should definitely listen to it. I feel like I'm not from Fresno, and so I don't necessarily think that I realized how much there is in Fresno and the surrounding areas. And so listening to it really has opened my eyes up to the possibilities of things that can be done from the Central Valley and surrounding it. I just think it's a really good listen, and I think any students in MCJ, any professionals, I think they could really gain a lot of insightful knowledge, advice, inspiration, that kind of thing.
Um, it's pretty much what Alexis said. I don't know if you guys already talked about it, but I think if you listen to the podcast, you would know so much more about the field. Like me, when I went into it, I knew nothing. And having these podcasts to listen to could kind of give you a direction or guide you in what way you want to pursue.
It seems like it really brings it beyond the classroom.
Yeah, it brings it beyond the classroom.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I would just like to say thank you to my fabulous students because they really have worked really hard. This is a unique client in that there are deadlines every single week and there's work to be produced every single week. And they've done a really great job.
All right. And Professor Hayes, one more time, how can people find Central Valley Stories podcast?
Yes, Spotify and Apple Podcasts are the most popular podcast platforms, and it's available on both of those and also on the YouTube channel. All you have to do is search in Central Valley Stories on YouTube and it'll come up, or Central Valley Stories on any of your podcast platforms.
Yeah. And I noticed I searched Central Valley Stories. It was the first thing that popped up. And yeah, give it a listen on my podcast. I don't want to play favorites with my podcast because
no.
we distribute everywhere
We
as
do.
well.
We are platform agnostic. We love them all. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. A reminder that the College of Arts and Humanities holds dozens of public events every semester. For the latest concerts, theater performance, shows, and lectures, visit calendar.fresnostate.edu. And for more on Central Valley Stories, go to our blog, fresnostatecah.com, and we will have a story posted by the end of the semester about this, hopefully by the time this airs. But yeah, we'll see you next week. Artful Discourse is a production of the College of Arts and Humanities at California State University, Fresno. The Dean is Dr. Honora Chapman, and the Associate Dean is Dr. Sergio Laporta. This program is written, directed, and produced by me, Benjamin Kirk, the college's communication specialist. The theme song for Artful Discourse is Maiden Voyage by Fresno State music professor Benjamin Boone from his album, Joy. More information about his music can be found at benjaminboone.com. Special thanks to KFSR and FSR Underground General Manager Julie Lindahl for making this show possible. You can learn more about the College of Arts and Humanities and find an archive of our shows at our website, cah.fresnostate.edu, or on our blog, fresnostatecah.com.